right, so welcome to... Jeez, I don't even know how to start this. Cut that part.
Hey, we're the DungeonVets, and today
we're not cutting anything, I thought.
Fuck!
Well, we are now.
I don't know that we can.
What do you mean?
It's
I thought the whole point was just to put it up live. Or not live, but just right away as it is.
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Start it in 25 seconds from the beginning or whatever.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
All right, well, good day, morning, whatever time it is to everybody out here watching. We are the DungeonVets. Typically, we cover books and movies and other such fantasy content and relate it to D&D 5th edition and talk about how you can bring that sort of stuff into your games as a player or dungeon master. But today...
We're cutting out the middleman. We're just talking about D&D.
We're just talking about cutting D&D. What are we doing?
Just talking about cutting D&D.
Yes.
We're erasing our entire purpose here. We're killing D&D. No, well, they're making some changes to D&D, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so it is October as we are recording this, and the most recent Unearthed Arcana dropped for the One D&D, basically, patch notes. Let's talk about how D&D is going to be changing in the future. As we are veterans of D&D, we are very vested in this hobby. So we want to be a big part of how the hobby improves as it gets older and goes on to hopefully bigger and better and more successful things.
One D&D. I hope that's just a placeholder.
Oh, honestly. Yes. Please just call it 6th edition.
No, it seems, I just saw a video there. It's not a new edition. There's not going to be more editions. That's not the plan. This is now going to be the thing forever. D&D. This is it. And
if that's true, I'm okay with it.
I'm not okay.
When I heard that, I was a little bit more okay with it, but I instead call it D&D. Maybe, well, I don't know whether one needs to be there. I don't know, but I get it, I suppose.
I guess it's okay because I like how it basically solidifies. This is Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to go play another type of game, it's not going to be associated with D&D. You can go do that. And like Pathfinder can continue to. I know. Yeah, I guess you could already do that, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the most current Unearthed Arcana that came out was the expert classes. So each of the classes in One D&D are going to be split or partitioned into one of, is it 3 or 4?
4.
Yeah, one of 4 different I guess clades.
You have expert, mage, priest and warrior. So kind of the classic fighter, wizard, cleric, rogue party, like 4-person party.
It's actually pretty neat. I like what they're doing. First off, they're making so that each of these classes, so the expert classes, which we're going to be covering today, which are bard, rogue, and ranger, all have something similar to them as a class. Like they're all built into their chassis is something they can all do the same, better than the other classes. In this case, it's expertise. The expert classes have expertise, whereas warriors, clerics, or warriors, priests, and mages won't. I like this personally.
Yeah, so I like the sort of classifications of class groups. This whole, the specialties things. So they're going to bring like feats in that only experts can get, for instance, instead of like only bards can get this or only rogues can get this. It's like this whole group of classes can get this feat because it's something that'll apply to their kind of deal.
And if you're running a party and say you have like a group of new players and you like are trying to fit a party together, a group of 4 people, you can just have one of each of those class archetypes. So, the expert, mage, priest, and warrior, and you can make a functioning class out of any combination of those.
Part of this is definitely, it looks like they are trying to make it easier for new people to step right into the game. I remember when I first picked up D&D 5th edition, and I'm a experienced fantasy enthusiast in many other areas, and it was still a lot to learn and to take in. It was a little overwhelming to decide which class I wanted to start off playing. And having these categorizations, I think, is going to really help new players. And that is the main goal of changing it this way, is because they're trying to bring even more and more people in.
Yeah.
I especially like these groups for the spell lists personally. I've never really liked the differences in spell lists from spellcaster to spellcaster, except with the case of like clerics and warlocks, because when you're channeling another actual living entity, it makes sense you might get spells that nobody else would have access to, no other spell list would have. But I don't see why wizards can't learn most of the druid spell list, or sorcerers can't learn most of the wizard spell list, and so on and so forth. So I think this will help with that.
Yeah, so what he's saying here, if you can download this PDF from just, I think it's what, dnd.com, right?
It's D&D Beyond too. It's on D&D Beyond.
It's on either, and you can go and take a look at this. And at the very end, you can apply to, or you can just take a survey and give your own feedback for what you think about the material. But what Steve is referencing here about the spell list is they've been split into 3 different lists: arcane, divine, and primal. Arcane being, your wizard and sorcerer type things, divine being your clerics, paladins, and primal being, which I really like the addition of primal spell lists, druids and rangers and that kind of thing. So it's like, putting them in a certain box. And so a druid is a full spellcaster, just like a cleric is, but one is divine and one is primal. So I like that is partitioned. And like you're saying, 5th edition was, touted as being super user-friendly and easy for people to get into. And it definitely is relative to older versions of D&D, but it could be better.
Yeah, 5e is pretty easy to pick up for the most part, but
yeah,
this looks like it'll be a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's like
which makes me wonder, like, let me phrase weird, but like, will it be too easy? Not easy, but rather like, is it going to be too simplified?
Simple. Yeah.
Is it going to be kind of like dumbed down? And so far from what I've seen in the direction they're going, I don't think that is the case.
I guarantee there's going to be tables out there that just like, the tables that hold on to Pathfinder or 3.5, like, they don't want to let go at all. There's going to be tables that prefer the 5th edition rules. So
it's probably going
to they have said too, they've explicitly said that everything from 5e, everything that you've ever purchased is still useful in the game, it's still usable and valuable. And so this is being added to the 5e stuff. It's not supplanting it and replacing it entirely.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of it definitely is.
Well, kind of it is.
There are some rules that are just straight up changed from 5th edition.
5th edition PHB will be obsolete.
Yeah.
Like, you will need a 1D&D PHB, which I'm not looking forward to buying, but
I do think that the plan though with this is that it'll be available on D&D Beyond because they acquired D&D Beyond. And that the point is they're trying to do some virtual and physical combination. I think this is code for like they're trying to go after Roll20 in the future.
It'd be interesting to see if we get an actual like virtual tabletop, application from Wizards of the Coast.
It would be neat. I wouldn't mind another competitor to like Tabletop Simulator, which I much prefer to Roll20.
I do as well. Although both of them have their respective advantages and disadvantages.
Totally. So moving on through this PDF, they basically define the class breakdown and what makes the classes difference going forward. And so the parts of the class is the primary ability. That's where like your ranger gets favored foe or terrain, that kind of thing. Your rogue, their primary ability is sneak attack. The class groups are again split in from experts, mages, priests, and warriors. If you're wondering what that looks like, experts are bard, ranger, and rogue. Those characters that have these expertise in certain skills. The characters that are like really, really good at certain things. The woodsman ranger, the sneaky pick all the locks rogue, or the bard who's just great at talking to people.
Another way to think about it is literally just the characters that will get expertise in something.
Correct.
Yeah. Often really, really good at certain things, and by extension, pretty good at a range of things.
Yeah.
Unlike the barbarian and the paladin,
Your skill jockeys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ranger, I feel like whenever we in our tables. The Ranger's always helping out someone if they're not already leading whatever check needs to be made. They can just fit into really any kind of scenario that needs to be that is approached. Then there's mages. So these are going to be your arcane magic folk, which are sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. Squishy boys. There are the priests who are going to be doing divine or primal. So cleric, druid, and paladin, which this was a surprise to me to see paladin in the priest subsection, but I've decided that I liked it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
I think.
I remember we spoke about this previously, and we all speculated that monk and paladin were switched, that paladin was in warrior and monk was in priest. And I agree. I was surprised at first, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And so cleric, druid, paladin, and they're going to focus on healing, utility, and defense, which, when you compare a paladin and a fighter, you don't want them to both be able to have the same offensive output. You want one to be better than the other, and then the other gives up some of that offensive output for their magic. So this, I do think this is a nerf to paladins overall, but we'll get into that later. And then there's the warriors, who are the barbarians, fighters, and monks. So they're the master of combat. They're the DPS who can deal damage and endure. So, they're your bruisers type characters. So with each of those groups, the experts all get expertise. We don't know what the other classes get yet, but I would really enjoy speculating that the warriors probably get fighting styles. They get their own special feats as well.
Well, from what I understand, all of the fighting styles are now their own feats as well.
Yeah, they're like level 0 feats.
And so, and if you take because feats are also going to be part of the character builds now. Everyone's going to get a feat in 1D&D to start off with. It's going to be part of your background, I believe.
I believe also that feats will be separate from ASIs in 1D&D?
No.
ASI is its own feat now.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So it's just...
So you choose a feat at level 4. That feat could be an ASI improvement or ability score improvement.
I can see that being a bit confusing to new players. For veteran players, it's just you've already kind of put it in your head that you get a feat or ASI at 4th level. You might as well just call ASI a feat and forgo that entire confusion. But yeah, I'm really hoping that in the way experts get expertise, I want warriors to get maneuvers. I want all 3 of them to have maneuvers or something. I think that'd be
very cool.
Like of a monk, barbarian, and fighter, instead of there being a battle master, you could get superiority die, and any of those characters can get certain maneuvers.
That'd be cool.
I think that really goes with the monk fantasy too.
Yeah, hopefully they're gonna buff the monk a little bit in this. I'm sure that's part of their aim. But something that I kind of want for the warriors, I wonder if you guys agree with me here. I think that weapon proficiencies in D&D 5e are way too expansive. And
like martial versus simple?
No. As in, well, yes. Yeah. Martial versus simple. And honestly, just the martial category itself, I think, is way too big. You've trained with a longsword. Does that mean that you would be excellent with a glaive or a flail? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all, I don't think. And so, why is a bard I think this is going away actually in 1D&D, but in 5e, all bards are proficient with longswords, whether they're a valor bard, a swords bard, a lore bard, or a whispers bard. And that doesn't make any sense. If you want to be a swords bard, then that proficiency could come with that subclass. But I personally would like to see, like you say, getting fighting styles. I would also like to see the martial classes get to pick their weapon proficiencies.
Yeah, I think that would be cool if the weapons were more differentiated, like if swords could do certain things that spears can't, and vice versa.
See, that's what I would like to see, because I think it makes perfect sense to go sort of the route that you talked about, Steve. Just because you're good at one weapon, you're not going to be good at every single weapon that's out there. Like a fighter, as it stands in 5e, could just pick up anything and be great with it.
Yeah.
However, I do think along with that, so you have to pick, which, selection of weapons you're trained with, your character is good at. it would be very cool to be able to do specific things with those weapons then.
Especially if you have to pick them from the get. I agree with
Yeah.
that 100%. And I still think you could pick like maybe 5 or 6. People don't understand how many weapons there are in D&D. There's like 25 or something. And even if you're 5 weapons is a lot. There's a feat called martial or adept or no, weapon master. That's what it's called. It's a stupid, useless feat. Like the only person who would ever need to take it is like a wizard or a sorcerer, and you are committing to being a weird wizard or sorcerer if you take that feat. So I
think actually it could go very well with kind of what Ryan talked about, is giving every one of these warrior classes maneuvers. You could basically just be like, all right, you can do this maneuver with these sorts of weapons and this maneuver with these sorts of weapons. And so whichever weapons you choose to do kind of it influences which maneuvers you're able to use.
I would love this for so many reasons too. And it would make Monk much more appealing to me if they were able to have superiority die and be able to use maneuvers as all warriors could theoretically. And then they have their key for using their actual spells. So a key and maneuvers being separate for them. I think that would be a fun way to do it.
I think that'd be cool.
I'm not even sure you'd need superiority die to go along with it. Although, I mean,
maybe
that
the situation is different.
would be very neat.
System's different.
Yeah. And, some maneuvers, I think it would be kind of necessary to like really give it an advantage. But like if you're doing like a trip attack, for instance, like you don't necessarily need the extra damage for that to be a very useful maneuver.
You're right. Absolutely. But moving forward down the PDF, for the record, Artificer is going to be an expert subclass.
Expert, yeah.
But it's not in this PDF. This is a limited PDF. This is a taster for us to basically dip our toes into everything. And each one of the classes, Nate, your camera went out again. Each one of these classes in the PDF just have one of their subclasses shown. So it's not going to have every ranger or rogue, but those will eventually be dripped to us in the future. So we can look at those and how they will be in One D&D. But we get the hunter ranger, the thief rogue, and the lore bard, I believe, right?
Yes, lore bard.
I personally really like that Artificer is going into expert instead of mage, because to me, I think the Artificer is more fun when they're kind of being crafty and inventive as opposed to using magic,
Yeah,
which they are in 5e. They definitely are like a magic using class and stuff like that. And they're doing magic-y stuff. But in my mind, the Artificer that I really like is the one who's just like really inventive. He's got gadgets, not necessarily magic, although they can be very intertwined.
An intelligence-based expert I think is going to be very neat.
Yeah.
But the first class in the PDF is the bard. Steve is our resident bard. Did you have any initial thoughts?
I rolled and it's nat 2. So the proficiencies, aren't changing much. Like I said, the longsword went away from their weapon proficiencies. It's just simple weapons now, which I like. Even though I just talked about how maybe it's a little too expansive for my taste. However, I can acknowledge that I'm not going to be in the majority on that line of thought. We got the same light armor proficiency, 3 musical instruments, which is itself kind of wild. That's unless they're all like in the same family, like strings or horns or something like that. That's crazy.
I mean, I guess you kind of think if you're a bard, you've kind of devoted your life to music, right?
Yeah.
Or ostensibly.
You see those people on Reddit who can like play 4 different instruments at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think of the bard more as than just a musician, even though I myself am the classic musician bard when I play. I would really like to see more and more iterations of bards, like jesters and dancers and weird painters that you could use that in some kind of way, That
would be very interesting. I like that idea a lot. Yeah.
And all of the subclasses fit to make the bard a musician, mage, and or melee person, So
but without
yeah,
going level by level and saying what's different.
Yeah, I was just about to say we get to the big change with inspiration. I was just going to jump right there. I don't
different.
think that I like the change here. Instead of using inspiration as a bonus action, as it was in 5e, you can use it as a reaction when another creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear fails a d20 roll. You can use a reaction to give that creature Bardic Inspiration die, and then they can immediately roll that die and add it to the d20, potentially turning the failure into a success. The other way you can do this, there's two new ways. There's that, and then there's the heal effect.
Yeah.
Immediately after another creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear takes damage, you can use your reaction to roll a Bardic Inspiration die and restore a number of hit points to the creature equal to the number rolled. Which is
what do you not like about this? Because I think this is better. I think this is a better way of implementing Bardic Inspiration. But let me hear your thoughts.
So the boost to the reaction, you fail a d20 and you can do it. Okay. One, it seems like it's going to replace the spell Silvery Barbs. Because
that's good though, right? Isn't it?
I do agree. The Silvery Barbs is a crazy powerful spell for first level. And this is also what the Lore Bard already had as their subclass feature in cutting words. It was as a reaction, you can expend one of your Bardic Inspirations to it's usually mess with an enemy. And so instead now it's to help one of your teammates. I guess it makes it easier for your inspirations to be used and to be used positively, which I understand is a benefit. And I understand players want to do cool things and everything, but I like being able to think through. I like being able to have strategy, and I like having consequences to bad decisions and bad strategies, and you having to decide on your turn as a bonus action, and then the player who has inspiration having to decide when to use it on their own. I just liked it better. I thought it had more agency to the players rather than the effect of succeeding with the inspiration.
I can see that. And in addition to that, like, you have to be there to use Bardic Inspiration, like when it happens, I would assume now. As opposed to being able to, like, okay, we're sending, the rogue off to go do some stealthy shit, and they're going to be off on their own, split from the party. Let's leave them with some Bardic Inspiration that they can use when they see fit. But now
it says nothing about lasts for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It is when you decide to use it, it is immediately used for that. Yeah, because it says the creature rolls that die. And so it is used when you use it. There's no agency for the player you have given it to use it. And I guess I just liked that a little bit better. This will make it effective, far more effective. No more wasted, or far fewer wasted. You could still not roll high enough to get it, but no
more. Oh shit! I forgot I have Bardic Inspiration.
Yeah, that's the great aspect of that. But I do like that the player could choose when to use it and save it for certain situations. But I also, one thing, I think it's cool that you can heal with it. But I'm not sure that I like the fantasy that every bard can heal somehow, and it kind of like steps on everyone else, which maybe I just haven't thought about how I would accept that fantasy. But like, how would you imagine the bard heals you? Like, because normally,
oh shit, I love this song. This is my jam.
Yeah. You think about how like a bard, we look at Scanlan and other famous bards, and they're shouting out like an old song, and it gives you inspiration because it pumps you up. But how would you say like that heals you? And it's definitely taking like over like healing word.
Is healing word?
Yeah.
There's no difference between the two spells, or this feature and that spell. There's no difference, and I think it's a little bit worse for the bard in this case, because like the swords bard, for example, which maybe it's going to die, maybe it's going to go away, but the swords bard is now going to have to decide between using his flourishes or healing or allowing somebody to re-roll a d20. And the Now you have a number of bardic inspiration die. You have equal to your proficiency bonus, no longer equal to your charisma modifier.
Yeah, and so
I'm kind of indifferent about that.
Those are the big inspiration changes for sure. But at second level, you get expertise, which is it's the same as before, right?
Normal, yeah.
No, okay. But everyone has their own kind of spell list now. So you get certain songs of restoration repertoire. And something that I think Mr. Crawford said that he was going to do is basically really put these spell lists down for everyone. So newer players can just be like, oh, that's a solid spell list. I'll just say I have those spells. Whereas, veteran players are going to pick and choose the exact ones they want. But at third level, you get your Bard subclass. Lore is covered here. And it looks pretty normal for the Lore Bard. But Magical Secrets is much later than it used to be, correct?
Was it? Well, the Lore Bard was still going to get it at 6th level.
Okay. The subclass feature, gotcha.
It does. Magical Secrets bumps 1 level down for every other bard from 10th to 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a ton of change in that, except that Jack of all trades, where you can add half your proficiency bonus to any ability check, is moved from 2nd level to 5th level, which I think is a good move. It's kind of, I have always thought that the bard is better than the rogue as the skill monkey, because of that very feature right there that he gets at 2nd level. And he can literally do anything and add a 1 to it because you have a proficiency bonus of 2. And so even if he has a 0 in something, he gets to add +1, has a -1 in something, no more. And
it's good. It's solid.
It's very good.
But moving on, that's going to be a trend through all the classes. Is that 19th level, you get a feat. And at 20th level, you get another special feat called an Epic Boon. That makes it to where all the subclasses, their capstone features at 18th level. So no longer are you going to miss out on the capstone feature if you multi-class at some point. You can now get your capstone feature at 18th level and then multi-class into a 2-level dip in the Warlock that everybody does, or Paladin or some other effective thing. But we'll get into the feats later. But an Epic Boon is just a fancy word for a 20th level feat.
So what do you guys think of the prepared spells now for the bard?
I think they're good. And the prepared bard spells are just the recommendation. They are not what you have. They are the recommended spell list that the Wizards is saying you could run with this and be pretty good. And you would have these spells and you would be effective in a good bard. And I think, for a lot of players, they're not going to want to trudge through the spell list. We will. And, many other people like us will. But a 3rd level bard having Charm Person, Blur, and Shatter, that's pretty good.
And so this means that you'll have prepared spells that you always have prepared. And then you'll have another section of spells that you have available for the day, or just that the bard can prepare spells in the way that the wizard used to?
So if it has a little dagger, that means it's always prepared. Otherwise, like that list that's shown in the PDF is just their recommendations. So you would have the same amount of options given to your bard that you can choose. But those are
okay, so then it's just like the wizard where they can change after a long rest.
I believe so.
Well, what do you guys think about that with the bard stepping into the wizard's ability like that?
I'm fine.
Or everybody's going to be doing that, right? A lot of people are going to have prepared spells now.
I don't think it's really stepping on any toes there, to be honest. And
I dislike that certain classes just, a wizard's this super duper smart person who has to pick the certain spells that they have for a day, but a cleric is just a normal dude chosen by God, and he can wake up with the ability to cast a wide breadth of spells. I always thought that was kind of like a little bit weird. So the fact that there might be more thought into it is better for me. Like you could have 6 intelligence and be a cleric and cast just as many spells as a wizard.
What does that say about religion?
Powerful, apparently.
Yeah.
All right, but moving on to Ranger. Nate and I, we played Rangers before. We both like the Ranger subclass. It's gotten a lot of hate recently, or I guess recent few years, especially with the revised Ranger coming out, which I do think is better than the initial Ranger. The big pitfalls were that it kind of falls off in its later levels, and whereas every other class is doing more damage consistently, the Rangers really just kind of plateau. But Nate, what are your thoughts on the Ranger?
The thing I like the most is that they're moving a little bit excuse me. They're moving a little bit away from the Ranger being your kind of stereotypical woodsy person. And more of like an explorer in general. Someone who knows how to get their way around regardless of the environment. I think I believe they're taking away favored terrain entirely.
I don't think it's in the PDF, so I would assume so.
Yeah, no, they are.
And yeah,
because it was something that rarely came up as a benefit for the party.
Oh yeah, very rarely. It was almost to the point of being useless. So yeah, I like that a lot, because the Ranger that I was just playing was not a woodsy sort of Ranger. They were kind of a city Ranger, and it'd be nice to have more options for that sort of character, like be reflected in the actual class features.
They took a lot of the optional abilities or the optional Ranger things that came with Tasha's, and they made it just a part of the class, which I really like. An example would be like
Tasha's really did a good job.
Oh, and when I played my Ranger, the big part of roving was you have a climb speed and swim speed equal to your walking speed, which I used all the time as a Ranger, especially climbing. You can really take advantage of the Z-axis in your games if you have a climb speed that is the same as your running speed.
Yeah.
You can Zephyr Strike right up a building. It's just cool.
What do you think about the change to favorite enemy, Nate? It basically,
it's way better.
It is way better. Yeah.
It's just a complete improvement.
So this is a big thing. So with favorite enemy, you always have access to the Hunter's Mark spell. You have it prepared. You don't have to pick it. It doesn't count against your Ranger spell list, which was always kind of like a -1 spell because you always had to pick Hunter's Mark no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't count against your spells that you have to concentrate on. So now you can pick a guy and you do more damage to that person or that creature. And that's great. And the big struggle with me when I was playing my Ranger Galen is I had to be like, do I want to Hunter's Mark this guy or do I want to cast Zephyr Strike? Because I need to concentrate on both. And that was a big struggle. And this is a good change because the crit rules are also changing in One D&D. And if you're not familiar with the new crit rule, instead of all of the dice getting rolled twice, or however you want to roll it, like if you do the thing that we do, whereas all the dice are maxed and then you add to the roll, those auxiliary dice that are not the actual weapon or spell attack, those are the only ones that get affected. So the arrow hitting someone or the barbarian's axe, not their rage or not their, any other bonuses that they might have, just the weapon.
This is one of the nerfs you were talking about.
Crits.
Yep. One of the nerfs you were talking about to the paladins.
Yes.
Yeah. Their smites are not so game shattering anymore.
Yeah. Which, I mean, let's be honest. They were pretty.
That's why you picked paladin over fighter.
Yep.
You wanted
to
be a
nat
fighter
20
who could also heal.
And then smite.
Like the Nova capabilities of paladins and like assassin rogues are just massive.
Yeah, and even with Rangers, it was pretty good when you had your Colossus Slayer plus Zephyr Strike, and then you crit, and then those also get doubled, and you could do some pretty crazy stuff. I think this is better. It's more predictable. No more 5th level paladins doing 90 damage in one turn.
Yeah, and
which recently happened to us a couple weeks ago.
And like Ryan was just talking about, you always want to use Hunter's Mark always. So yeah, make it a part of the class. You never look to use favored terrain. So just cut it entirely.
Yep.
This is great change.
Yep. Agreed. Spellcasting, we're gonna get the primal list.
Hopefully it expands a little bit for the Rangers. Like we were just talking about, you got Zephyr Strike, Hunter's Mark, and then some trash.
Pretty much. Druidcraft is kind of fun. Underrated spell.
Do they get cantrips? Oh no, wait, it's paladins that didn't get cantrips. Yeah, Rangers. Wait, do Rangers get cantrips?
I don't think so.
No. Yeah, they don't. No,
Oh,
you
no,
can
we do
prepare
now,
2
though.
0 level spells. Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh.
now they do? I don't think they did before. Did they?
Oh.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you can prepare 2 0-level spells and 2 first-level spells of your choice. Any spell you prepare for this class must be a primal spell. And can be any school of magic except evocation.
Huh.
That's pretty neat. But otherwise, I don't think there's too much to talk about with the Ranger. You know, they're only getting 2 attacks. They're not doing anything super crazy.
The Ranger did not get cantrips before.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Buff.
I mean, I just played a Ranger. I should know, but I'm not...
Which, yeah, there's no reason they can't have cantrips. Give them cantrips.
Give them cantrips.
Just give them cantrips.
Rangers can have a little bit of cantrips.
Everybody gets cantrips next edition.
Everybody?
Oh gosh, I hope not. I don't want a barbarian access cantrips. I don't need a barbarian using green flame blade.
Barbarian with prestidigitation.
No.
Clean barbarian.
Yeah, and so they cover the hunter in this PDF, and there's a few changes. They don't give you the choice between what is it, Horde Breaker, Colossus Slayer, and
something else I don't remember.
Something that sounds very similar to Colossus Slayer. It's like Giant Fighter or something like that. I don't know.
It is that.
It's something bigger than you, right?
Yeah, I think it's Giant Breaker or Giant Slayer or I don't know.
It's something like that. But the only useful ones, unless you're running that campaign that really works with giants, was Horde Breaker or Colossus Slayer. Colossus Slayer would also add another damage to the Ranger Nova if they crit, but no more. So what we do get is Hunter's Prey, and we can hit people with an unarmed as our attack action, and it deals an extra 1d8 if they're missing or any weapon, if they're missing any HP. So this is Colossus Slayer that is built straight into the Hunter Ranger now. So that is the way it works. So if somebody is hurt, we do more damage once a turn to somebody that's already hurt. You know, you're bringing down the deer that's been shot once. Multi-attack is kind of cool. 10th level, we always have Conjure Barrage prepared, and we can use it. You know, it's a 3rd level spell, but you can use it as a 1st or 2nd level, and it does a little bit less damage, but you get to shoot more. And this acts a lot like a Monk's Flurry of Blows, but from a range, which is kind of cool.
I agree. Do you think that this concept will continue of downcasting something? And what do you think about that?
I think it is a little bit more nuance, which we're getting rid of a lot of nuance. So maybe adding a little bit of nuance is okay. I think it's kind of neat.
I think it's kind of neat too. I guess I'm speculating on other types of spells or spell-like abilities that you could downcast or that other classes could downcast. Because like the idea of casting like a 1st level fireball, for example, which would be like what, 3d6, and that's flaming hands, isn't it?
Yeah, you just cast a freaking chromatic orb at that point.
But maybe the distance is reduced too.
Still,
so,
you know?
Yeah, I don't. It's very interesting to see if they continue. I'm very interested to see how they do that, if they do it anymore.
At which point, this is a 10th level ability. So at that point, you should probably understand spellcasting pretty well, and it shouldn't be very confusing to you.
Hopefully.
So if that becomes like another high level feature for other subclasses, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing how that might work. Yeah, like you're saying, if maybe an evocation wizard can, or a evoker wizard can do that with certain evocation spells, that'd be neat. But otherwise, nothing really crazy. 14th level, the hunters get evasion, more or less. But yeah, moving on to rogue. A lot of people crying about this.
Yeah, it's what sneak attack just once per turn, right?
It was, you could only sneak attack once per turn before.
Yeah, it was only once per turn before.
People are just crying to cry, I think. They don't. I feel like so many people want to be like the assassin rogue who does a million damage turn, and they don't even show the assassin rogue here.
It's when you take, it's once per turn when you take the attack action is what it is. So
it's not like
you can't do it on a reaction, and yeah.
Which
I don't think is really a big deal, honestly.
No,
but
people are crying to cry.
So what are people crying about?
They can't use evasion when they're incapacitated anymore.
And they can't get their sneak attack unless they're attacking on their attack action. So
they can't get it with a reaction,
with an opportunity attack
action,
or
opportunity.
Yeah. Any other thing.
Which did that really happen? Particularly often?
Maybe they just wanted the choice.
I mean, I agree with it. It shouldn't be a part of it, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it should be something you're spending effort doing, right?
Yes, I agree.
For me, it almost seems inconsequential. Like,
I'm sure it will be. I'm really sure it will be inconsequential.
And is the damage, am I correct in saying that the damage is going down? The number of D6s is decreasing? Because it says...
so we start with 1d6 until 3rd level, 2d6, and so on.
Roll a number of D6s equal to half your rogue level, round up.
Yeah, so every other level you get another d6.
At 10th level, you'll be rolling 5d6. Is
Right.
that the same as last time in 5e?
I'm not sure, but those dice won't be added in the crit because of the new crit rules.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of that was the kind of big change is no more crit sneak attacks.
You'll still get like your dagger damage, but that'd be crit, but
Your puny D4.
not 2d4s. Yeah, but hopefully assassins have like some poisons they can also add on top of this sneak attack, or anyone can use poisons in this game. So take proficiency in like alchemist tools or poisoner's kit, and then you can get your big damage numbers back up. It'll be okay. Just be smarter. But I don't think the rogue really changed much, if at all, other than the crit rule. So let's move on straight past the thief and into feats. So feats are different. They're still more or less something that you take to augment your character at certain levels. But feats now have levels. So feats either going to have you could be like 4th level feat, 0 level feat, 20th level feat, also known as an epic boon. Some feats will have prerequisites, which is same as before, but some feats will require that you're an expert, or you're a warrior, or that you have a certain amount of strength or dexterity or constitution. And then some feats are repeatable. You could take it more than once, and if it's not repeatable, you can just take the feat once. That's like a fighting style. Like picking a fighting style is a repeatable feat. Or an ASI is a repeatable feat.
Or like elemental adept, and you choose different elements that you're resistant to.
Exactly. Yeah. But they show off not all the feats in the game, but we get a couple 4th level ones. The feats do change. They have changed. Some of them are the same, but some feats have pretty significant differences.
Well, Actor is one I can think of right off the top of my head. Actor was kind of a lackluster feat before, and they changed it to where you get the mimicry feature that Kenku used to have baked into their race build. where you can mimic the sounds of other creatures, including speech.
So the dual wielder is also interesting. I think the enhanced dual wielding, if you're holding a light weapon like a short sword in one hand, you can hold another weapon that's not light in your other hand, like a long sword, and you can treat it like it's light, as long as it's not a two-handed weapon like a great sword or something like that. You do lose the 1 AC bonus that the 5th edition dual wielder had.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
1 AC is it's pretty significant, honestly.
5%. Yeah.
And
because you don't have a shield.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 4th level feat. It's not a 1st level feat. So that's
kind
of
how
a nerf.
Variant Human's gonna feel. Can't take a 4th level feat if you're not 4th level.
No. I love my variant humans.
Well, I mean, everyone's gonna have a feat from the beginning because they're back.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. I'm not sad anymore. I think that's a really good move, honestly, because I feel like feats really give you the opportunity to make your character feel a bit more unique. Really give them some flavor that is reflected on the table, you know?
Yeah, and there's so many times I would be making a character and I have to talk myself out of picking a variant human.
So many times I didn't talk myself out of playing a variant.
All right, epic boons, just 20th level feats. I wish they just called them 20th level feats rather than epic boons, because it's just another word. Anyway, they're really dang strong. Epic boon of dimensional travel. You have to be an expert or a mage. You can cast Misty Step without expending a spell slot, and once you use it, you can't use it again for short or long rest. It's pretty all right. 20th level, it's kind of like maybe not that great. But Misty Step being a bonus action does make you kind of like you just literally teleport everywhere, every single turn. It basically adds 30 feet onto your movement. But at 20th level, you're not getting away from whatever you're fighting. Whatever you're fighting is going to hit you. Irresistible Offense. The damage you deal always ignores resistance.
Could be very handy.
Yeah, the Tarrasque,
especially at 20th level when you're fighting
dangerous.
stuff that'll have, yeah.
Well, it's immunity, not resistance.
Oh, well, yeah, slightly less useful, but.
So some decently big changes to some decently popular feats. Great Weapon Master is now
gutted.
Where you get what?
It's gutted.
Yeah, it's now you get to increase a strength score by 1 immediately after you score a crit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 hit points. You can make 1 attack with the same weapon as a bonus action, which is okay. But then they took away the bonus to damage. And when you hit a creature with a heavy weapon as part of your attack action, you can cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target, which equals your proficiency bonus. So, yeah, I agree. It's a nerf.
First level feats, the fighting styles are prerequisite to the warrior group. So they're going to be the only ones doing anything extra with their weapons, which thematically makes sense.
Sharpshooter, though, I don't think is quite as bad, because your ranged attacks still ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. Attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage with your ranged attack rolls, which I think is pretty good. It doesn't give you the -5 to hit plus 10 to damage, but you do get being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged attack rolls. So that one's still okay. That one's still pretty good. And you get an ability score increase where you didn't before.
Yeah, I don't really mind Great Weapon Master. I think it's still usable just because of the cleave feature. The fact that you can't, -5 to your roll, add plus 10 damage. That was really the only reason you picked it before. I think it's okay. Keen Mind is also different. You're no longer you don't remember the last month of your life, and the DM has to remember the last month of his life just to facilitate your
Boo.
RP needs. So buff for DMs with Keen Mind. But the study action is kind of new. You can take the study action as a bonus action if you have Keen Mind, which is like you can try to figure out something about an opponent's like AC or weaknesses or stuff like that by using a roll.
That's cool. I like that. I like that better than, I believe it was the Cobalt Monk, something like that. That they make an attack roll and then they like somehow know the weaknesses and resistance and stuff by like punching them. And I was like, okay, I guess that's how it works.
They connect to their key and they're able to like see what they're about. But the study action is just an intelligence check. And it specifically is an intelligence check.
Yeah. Makes more sense, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, here's a completely new one called Speedster, 4th level feat. You possess exceptional speed and stamina, granting you a +1 to your dexterity or constitution. Your speed increases by 10 feet when you aren't wearing heavy armor. And when you take the dash action over difficult terrain. Oh, this is mobile. They tricked me. It's exactly what mobile is.
Is Polearm Master any different, Nate?
No, it is
I'm not
exactly
sure.
the same. I read it.
Okay. What about Sentinel? That's another big one.
I don't know why they nerfed great weapon. They wanted to get rid of those
The Nova
pluses
builds.
to damage. Yeah, that's exactly right. The Nova stuff. That's what they're doing.
Oh, man. Treant Monk Temple is in shambles.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure he will find ways to do an insane amount of damage regardless of the rules. Or these changes, rather. There's a few new ability checks, or just like questions are answered with how you run certain ability checks, which I think is nice because there are certain questions that were like, how does a DM decide what the DC for a certain thing is? There's a little table for it. DC of 5 being very easy. If something's a DC of 5, I'm not having you roll for it.
No, there's no point, really. I mean, it just goes back to the whole thing. It's like if it's necessary that they succeed in whatever they're doing, just don't roll for it.
Yeah.
Like if you need that to progress whatever you're doing, just have them do it. Don't roll.
It's one of those DM rules is don't make the players roll for something you're not prepared for them to fail.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's 5 DC, you do it. Not worried about it. But yeah, so what do you guys think overall of the changes? You happy with them?
I don't know. I feel like I need to like actually play with them, with the changes and with the new rules to get a real grasp of it. Because I'm a very much like a hands-on learner kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need to experience it. So, but I feel overall I think it's for the better. I think the changes are positive mostly. I don't agree with all of them, but again, I really need to play it to see.
I was definitely in the kind of like trying to be an ostrich with their head in the sand with all the changes at first, which being like, oh, I don't want things to change. I'm happy the way they are. But, eventually just having to embrace that things are going to change in the future. Getting ahead of that has been beneficial. And I think I think most of the changes are good, like you're saying.
And they seem pretty willing to listen to us players and DMs and the people who are doing this. And so I think that in the future, if stuff doesn't work, that they'll come back and do it. I don't think that I'm going to. As of right now, I don't like the inspiration changes for the bard.
But you can make that known on the survey, and so can you if you read through the content and play test it. Go give them that survey. Tell them what you liked and you didn't like.
Definitely go do that. I'm about to. And
Steve is about to write a very strongly worded letter. So
I just want
bards everywhere.
I want there to be agency with the inspirations, not it to just be this waiting in the back whenever it needs to be like, oh, somebody failed. There it is. I guess I still get to choose to give it to them or not. But, you know, when you're in the epic battle, every time somebody fails something like that, it's going to feel like, oh, well, I should probably do it now. I should probably do it this way. And it kind of takes the choice out of it a little bit, I think. I won't continue griping about it. We'll play and we'll see.
This is this experts document is 37 pages. We did not go through everything, and we didn't even hit the things that we did hit. We didn't hit them in crazy detail. So please go look at it yourself. At the very end, I just noticed something I didn't notice from before. Short sword's now simple, not martial.
You know, I read that and I thought, like, I fucking could have swore that short sword was the simple weapon the whole time.
Nah,
I
you're
was
thinking
wrong.
about a club.
I think a lot of people thought that. I think a lot of people thought that, and it was a common mistake, and that's part of why they changed it.
Yeah. But that is going to do it for us right now. If you like us and you like what we do, check us out at DungeonVets.com and check out our various podcast works where we go over fantasy books and
movies, TV shows, video games,
stuff,
all that stuff, and talk about how you can bring it into 5th edition, how you can get inspiration as a player or a DM. Maybe we'll have to change that to One D&D in 3 years from now when it comes out. But yep, we've been the Dungeon Vets. So
thanks for listening, y'all.
See you next time.
Bye.